Polly here, and I'm 30 years old. 2 years into our dating relationship, my spouse and I were joined in marriage by a mutual friend. His name is Ethan. We're having a great time together, even if we haven't started a family yet. About 50 individuals work at the successful factory owned by Ethan's family. Ethan's late father started the company, and thanks to everyone's hard work and commitment, it has grown significantly. Maria, Ethan's sister, is currently in charge of the business. She is single, does a great job in her position, and probably got her flair for managing from their mother, because both of them are great communicators. Maria is really kind and inviting. Because I was up with two brothers, it was a welcome adjustment to feel like a sister from the moment we met. But not everything goes as planned. The plant is located near our family home, and my mother-in-law retired when my father-in-law passed away. Our coffee breaks are at 2 p.m., which I have grown to hate, but she looks forward to them. My mood always gets worse when I have to get her coffee. During these pauses, she expresses her dissatisfaction by asking why Ethan and I haven't had children yet, which is an issue beyond our control. She occasionally uses sharp language. She becomes more agitated if I don't answer, saying cruel things about how deserving I am to be Ethan's wife, and even terrible things about my parents who have passed away. When I initially met Ethan's family, there was a misunderstanding that led to this tension. My mother-in-law was obviously surprised to hear that both of my parents had died. My father from a heart attack when I was 18, and my mother from cancer when I was 18. Despite the difficulties of my upbringing, my father raised my brother and me by himself, especially because he went away before I could properly express my thanks for his efforts. I mourn him terribly. It has been difficult to navigate these familial relationships, particularly in light of my mother-in-law's criticism. But in spite of all of these difficulties, I am strengthened by my relationship with Ethan and by the generosity of some of his family, including Maria. I treasure the new family relationships I have created, and I'm becoming better at handling the more complicated ones with grace. When others hear about my upbringing, they frequently show sympathy and acknowledge the difficulties I must have had growing up without my parents. But my mother-in-law took a quite different stance. Once she said something that shocked me. "So you might not live long either, huh?" Her statements were frank and inappropriate. It was an awkward time, and my husband Ethan was as surprised as I was. Still, my mother-in-law persisted in bringing up the subject as though it were a practical one. One day, while I was struggling to figure out where I fit in the family, Maria, who had been silent up until that point, spoke out. She broke the tense mood by slamming her palm on the table. Her voice broke the tension, making everyone stop. When my mother-in-law attempted to reassure her by saying, "Are you right, Maria? Do you not agree with me?" Maria shot back a chilly gaze, asking, "What are you talking about? It's Ethan who picked Polly, and she's amazing. Why are you unable to back that?" Her mother, who respected her greatly, was taken aback by her stern and protective words, which signaled the end of her bluntly critical remarks, at least when they were said in public. Still, throughout our coffee breaks, the subtle jabs continued. I could see the disappointment in my mother-in-law's eyes when I gave her coffee, instead of Maria, when we were the only two of us. Luckily, Ethan and I didn't live with his family. Instead, we leased a place close by, saving me from being exposed to her negativity all the time, save for those few moments of time. Our brief respite from sharing a roof was cut short when our room sustained significant damage, along with many other rooms in the building, during a record-breaking hurricane. It was difficult to stay there because of the severe ceiling leak. Maria, trying to control this situation, smiled innocently and suggested a solution. "Why should I worry? Stay with us, and you'll save 25 seconds on your commute." We briefly moved in with Ethan's family due to the circumstances. Ethan, welcome home. It must have been difficult, but Mom is glad we can live together once more, my mother-in-law said warmly, focusing largely on her son. Ethan was acting like a disobedient adolescent, largely ignoring her. Then she said, catching sight of me, "Oh, Polly, you're here too." "Because you're so silent, I missed it." Grin more. Though intended to be humorous, her remarks merely increased the tension, as shown by the furious look on Ethan's face. The event highlighted the intricate layers of family connections and the tenacity required to negotiate them, even when the dynamic in the household was strained. I had to adjust to living under my in-laws' roof when our apartment was damaged by a hurricane, and I moved in with them. To show my appreciation on our first night, I decided to cook dinner, preparing a simple yet hearty meal of bread, soup, and steak. Both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law complimented the meal, which eased some of my tension, and I felt a moment of genuine relief. However, an unexpected turn happened just as I thought dinner was winding down. My mother-in-law stood up, humming cheerfully, and retrieved a container from the fridge. She then generously topped her steak with its contents, which to my surprise was jam. This unusual pairing caught the attention of everyone at the table. My husband, sitting next to me, looked visibly disgusted, while Maria, with an eye roll, commented that no amount of persuasion could stop their mother from her peculiar food habits before bursting into laughter. Observing more closely, the sight of jam on a perfectly good steak was peculiar indeed. When you eat something salty, you crave something sweet, right? My mother-in-law explained, quite pleased with herself. Despite her enthusiasm, the thought alone was enough to give me heartburn. Noticing my hesitation, she encouraged me to try it, proclaiming it delicious. I managed a forced smile, which did not seem to satisfy her. "I'm recommending it for a reason. You might live longer if you follow my example," she remarked cryptically before leaving the room. My husband and Maria quickly apologized for her odd behavior, explaining that she had an intense sweet tooth and never felt her day was complete without indulging in something sugary. Apparently, her health checkups always returned normal results, which seemed miraculous given her diet. Maria then shared that she was often sent to buy cake because her mother found it embarrassing to do so herself. This errand had made Maria quite familiar with all the local cake shops. Ethan, chiming in, expressed concern about their mother's health habits, feeling guilty that Maria often had to manage their mother's whims alone. "Well, I think you guys will have to help out more from now on," Maria cheerfully declared, suggesting that we might be in for more lively interactions with my mother-in-law. Living with the in-laws, despite its challenges, had its perks, like the drastically shorter commute. But it also meant navigating a complex web of family dynamics, dietary quirks, and unexpected comments, all under one roof. I had taken on the responsibility of managing the household chores, making sure everything was in order both before and after my workday. Despite my efforts to engage in conversation with my mother-in-law, she frequently dismissed me or reacted coldly. Regardless of her attitude, she never passed up an opportunity to criticize the children over coffee breaks. Since relocating here, my days have increasingly become more challenging due to the added stress, which visibly affected my mood. My husband noticed this shift and suggested multiple times that we should visit a doctor together. He even proposed escaping to a hotel for a short break, which I declined, considering it an unnecessary expense, especially since the nearest hotel was quite a distance away. The situation took a turn for the worse when my husband announced an upcoming week-long business trip. To my dismay, he also mentioned that my sister-in-law Maria would be joining him. This meant I would be alone with my mother-in-law, which filled me with dread. Although he offered to take me along, I decided against it, hoping to endure the week despite feeling unwell. On the morning they left, Maria sent a message to my phone titled Mother-in-Law Survival Guide, which humorously advised, "If anything happens, just give her cake, and you'll be fine." It included a list of local cake shops and her favorite selections from each. This quirky guide was surprisingly comforting given the tough week. I was bracing for the worst, but I remained optimistic that after the week, our home renovations would be complete, and we could return to our usual living situation. However, that glimmer of hope dimmed on the first evening alone when I came back from work to find my mother-in-law confrontationally blocking the entrance. She demanded, "You know why. Angry, don't you?" I responded, somewhat exasperated, "No, I'm not psychic." It turned out I had missed both the scheduled 2 p.m. coffee breaks, something that slipped my mind amidst the chaos of juggling work and home. In the absence of my husband and Maria, I had hoped she would be understanding given her work history. But instead, she lashed out the moment we were alone, accusing me of starting this harassment and labeling me a wicked woman. I was stunned, feeling an immense disconnect, and wondering why I was being treated so harshly when all I had done was inadvertently miss a couple of coffee breaks. I was counting down the days until my husband and sister-in-law returned, holding on to the hope that it was just a few more days of enduring the strained atmosphere. During a particularly rough day, I had bought a cake over my lunch break and left it in the office fridge, planning to smooth things over with my mother-in-law. When I mentioned the forgotten cake, her demeanor shifted from anger to delight. "Let's just forget today happened. Just don't forget tomorrow. Okay," she said with renewed cheerfulness before returning to her room. From then on, I was diligent about remembering the coffee breaks, knowing the drama that would ensue if I slipped up again. In the morning my husband and Maria were due back. I was overcome with stress, experiencing nausea, headaches, and a total loss of appetite. I couldn't handle work, so I took the day off to visit the hospital. The doctor's words shattered me. "It's quite serious. Can your family come right away?" I was diagnosed with cancer and given a prognosis of possibly only 2 to 5 months left. Tears stained my face as I returned home, physically shaking and emotionally spent. When I arrived, I collapsed onto the bed, only to be interrupted by the door slamming open. My mother-in-law stormed in, scolding me for skipping work while the others were hard at it. Her harsh words only intensified my headache. With little energy left, I told her I was feeling ill and turned away to close my eyes. She lingered, continuing to rant about my supposed inadequacies and even insinuating I wouldn't live long. I lay there silently, feigning sleep. Suddenly, she demanded to know why I hadn't prepared for today's coffee break. Her insensitivity was appalling. I opened my eyes to find her hovering over me. "Grace, I'm sorry. I'm just not well enough to go shopping today. Could you please?" She cut me off dismissively, demanding chocolate cake and accusing me of faking my illness. My frustration boiled over. "Shut up. Listen to me. I have 1 month to live. Go buy your damn cake, you idiot." My words left her speechless, her eyes wide in shock. At that moment, my husband and Maria appeared, alarmed by the confrontation. "Mom, what are you doing?" "And Polly, what do you mean by 1 more month?" My husband's face was pale, mirroring Maria's concern. Ignoring the visibly shaken mother-in-law, my husband rushed to my side. His support was a sudden relief, and I burst into tears. "I can't take it anymore." I sobbed. "The doctor says it might be cancer, and I feel terrible, but she keeps nagging me to go buy cake. Enough is enough. And stop bothering me about the kids, too. Just leave me alone, you idiot." All my pent-up resentment towards my mother-in-law came pouring out as I finally voiced my anguish and frustration. As I broke down in tears, my husband and sister-in-law fixed my mother-in-law with icy stares. The thought of sending a sick person out to buy a cake seemed absurd to them. Maria, usually so cheerful, now wore a grim expression that was frankly intimidating. In this tension, my husband raised his voice, revealing something deeply personal. "You've been making mean comments about us not having kids." "Well, the reason we can't have kids is because of me," he admitted. It turned out that about a year after we got married, we saw a doctor because we were having trouble conceiving. The test showed that I was fine, but there were issues with my husband's fertility. He had been devastated by the diagnosis and frequently apologized to me, looking so forlorn. I never wanted to burden him further, so I avoided discussing children. I loved our life together, just the two of us, and never considered leaving him over our inability to have children. We had kept this private, especially from my mother-in-law, knowing she would only use it to hassle us. As my husband spoke, my mother-in-law's face seemed to drain of life. Just then, my phone rang. It was the hospital calling, and the tone was urgent. They asked us to come in immediately. The call ramped up my anxiety, and I began to cry again. "It's okay, Polly, can you stand?" "I'm right here with you," my husband said, his voice thick with emotion. Together, we hurried to the hospital. When we arrived, we were quickly ushered into a room where not only the doctor, but also the hospital director were waiting. They had shocking news. There had been a dreadful mistake. My medical records had been confused with another patient who had the same name and birth date. It was a misdiagnosis. The oversight seemed unbelievable, yet the tired expressions on the faces of the medical staff spoke volumes. This error later made local news, prompting the hospital to promise a review of their procedures to prevent such a mistake again. They referred us to another hospital for a follow-up. Back at my in-laws' house, it appeared that Maria had taken the time to reprimand my mother-in-law, who now seemed smaller, almost shrinking into her chair. Maria later confessed to me that she had been terrified at the thought of her brother potentially losing his wife. The entire ordeal had brought some harsh realities to light, and it seemed to have changed the dynamics in our family, hopefully for the better. Amidst the tears and confessions, an unexpected twist of fate transformed our emotions. When my sister-in-law Maria, with genuine concern etched on her face, asked about my well-being, I revealed, with tears of joy spilling from my eyes, "I'm pregnant." Beside me, my husband began to cry, his tears reflecting the pure happiness we both felt. We rushed to the maternity hospital as recommended, where it was confirmed early on in the visit, "Yes, you're pregnant." "We can hear the heartbeat," the doctor announced. Hearing this, we both cried even more, overwhelmed by the joy of the news. Maria, who was with us, also shed tears, expressing her relief and happiness. Following this emotional roller coaster, Maria got engaged to her long-term boyfriend and announced her plans to move to another state with him after resigning from her job. We had been aware of her plans, so it wasn't a shock to us. Meanwhile, my husband, who was about to take over as the new CEO, had his schedule packed with client meetings. The business trip, which he later explained was cut short, allowing him to return home early, was for this transition. However, my mother-in-law was completely out of the loop about Maria's life changes. When Maria mentioned her upcoming marriage and move, my mother-in-law was utterly surprised. How come? Getting hitched, giving up her work, shifting to a different state? She cried in shock. Maria jokingly reminded her, saying, "Yes, you remember what I told you." "Well, it's all settled now, so it doesn't matter." My mother-in-law was taken aback by this, but we all ended up laughing at how confused we were. When we got back home, our room looked brand new, and our previously leaking roof had been completely fixed. We joyfully celebrated the improvements, believing that a new beginning had finally arrived. Even with the renovations and the newfound happiness, things with my mother-in-law were still a little tense. Specifically, my spouse carried a resentment that was difficult to overcome. He was even more distraught than I was, saying he would never want to see his mother again. But instead of always bringing cakes to our coffee breaks, she started to occasionally bring healthy snacks like biscuits. She appeared to be making an effort to lead a healthier lifestyle, particularly since she was aware that she would become a grandmother shortly. Seeing her, the staff members, many of whom had collaborated with my father-in-law during his tenure as CEO, seemed sincere and happy. This helped me see that maybe her prior acts were a little misplaced rather than really cruel. Our conversations increased in frequency and quality over time, and she eventually quit her regular whining. With the birth of our daughter, Catherine, my mother-in-law underwent a true transformation. She started to assist out more, purchasing diapers, and frequently dropping over cooked side dishes for our supper. She would choose not to ring the bell in order not to disturb us, instead leaving these in a cooler outside our door with a note. These kind actions were really appreciated, and they gave me the impression that we could actually get along. This newly discovered tranquility was cemented moments after Catherine's birth. With tears in her eyes, my mother-in-law grasped my hand and expressed her profound gratitude. "Polly, thank you so much," she said. Seeing her real feeling let me realize that this change was real. Maria recently revealed that she was pregnant and appeared to be prospering in her new life. It appears that we won't be spending much time together at the in-laws' place, enjoying supper in a truly peaceful environment. This bright future seemed like a big and welcome departure from the conflicts of the past.